Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. There's so much going on out there. But I know that the big story that you really want to hear about is Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau. Baby talk. We have the inside scoop from sources inside who shall remain anonymous until the day I go to my grave. We'll get into it. And I'll give you some inside reaction tonight, too, to all of that. But there's other news. On the economic front, Bank of Canada set its interest rate today. And what happened there is very revealing. More so about the United States than Canada. I'll explain that when we get to that story as well, which should be the first thing we touch on heading into tonight's coverage of today's top news stories. Also, more talk about what's going on with ICE. Steve Bannon saying MAGA doesn't back down. And South Korea talking cars in Canada. Oh, yeah. This is not as cut and dried as some people might think. Canada has some real resiliency. So don't go away. There's a lot to unpack on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, right off the top, let's talk economics, okay? Because economics might seem like a dry topic, but it really affects every aspect of our lives, your life. It affects whether you have a job or not. It affects maybe even whether we will end up having a country in Canada or not, or whether the United States will even be able to survive. Today, the Bank of Canada maintained its key interest rate at 2.25%. And this is a pivotal moment, I would say, because if you really look at what is going on here, this reveals real strain on the U.S. economy. And the reason it's under strain in the United States is because of Donald Trump and his tariff policies. Let me explain. Subhead: monetary policy cannot compensate for the structural damage caused by tariffs. That is from the Bank of Canada, Governor Macklem today. Says here, Bank of Canada held its overnight interest rate at 2.25%. In a move widely expected by economists, the announcement made clear that heightened uncertainty with the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, CUSMA, in focus clouded any future decisions. While Council judges the current policy rate is appropriate based on our outlook, the consensus that elevated uncertainty made it difficult to predict the timing or direction of the next change in the policy rate. Governor Tiff Macklem said in remarks about the rate decision. So, for those of you who are maybe not, terribly well versed in economics, Canada uses monetary policy and interest rates to manipulate the value of the Canadian dollar in relation to the US dollar. Some people will tell you that the Canadian dollar is pegged to the US dollar. That is incorrect. Canada has a dollar that floats on the open exchange markets, on the foreign exchange markets. So, monetary policy, interest rates, the key interest rate, the rate charged to central banks around the world, if you're buying or selling Canadian dollars, for instance, the interest rate is the price of money. The interest rate really regulates the price or the value of the dollar vis-a-vis the US dollar. So if our interest rates are lower, the Canadian government is essentially making it less expensive to buy Canadian dollars, increases demand. But by manipulating the interest rates, we can devalue the dollar. And that makes our products more competitive for export to the US market and even foreign markets. The Chinese do this a lot too. You may have heard Donald Trump complain a lot about that during his first presidency, complaining that the Chinese were artificially devaluing the Chinese currency so that it created an unfair, unlevel trading environment. Canada has been doing that for a long time. It's not excessive. It makes it so that Canada can sell products into the States for less. It also means, however, that you and I, everybody in Canada, we end up working harder for less than our US counterparts in order to maintain a competitive edge on pricing for our exportable goods. Well, what happened today signaled something important. It signaled that the United States is no longer viewed as a safe haven for investors, that the US dollar is showing real cracks, that it's no longer as stable as it used to be, that there is a loss of confidence. Let's go to the news conference here, which was held this morning. We'll run a little bit of this from the Bank of Canada Newser this morning, and we'll let the man speak for himself.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here with Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers to discuss our decision and monetary policy report. Today, Governing Council maintained our policy interest rate at 2.25%. Our forecast for economic growth and inflation in Canada has not changed significantly since our October projection. As the Canadian economy continues to adjust to U.S. trade restrictions, we expect the economy to grow modestly and inflation to stay close to our 2% target. However, uncertainty around our forecast is heightened. The range of possible outcomes is wider than usual. U.S. trade policy remains unpredictable, and geopolitical risks are elevated. Our monetary policy decisions are focused on keeping inflation close to the 2% target while helping the economy through this period of structural change. Governing Council judges the current policy rate remains appropriate, conditional on the economy evolving broadly in line with the outlook we published today. With heightened uncertainty, we are monitoring risks closely. If the outlook changes, we are prepared to respond. Aujourd'hui, le Conseil de direction a maintenu le taux directeur à 2,25%. Notre prévision pour la croissance et l'inflation au Canada n'a pas modifié nos perspectives. Some modest strengthening to be buffeted by U.S. tariffs, while domestic demand, on est prêt à réagir. So let me expand on what we've seen in the economy since October and what we see ahead. Tariffs and uncertainty continue to disrupt the Canadian economy. After a strong third quarter, economic growth likely stalled in the fourth quarter. Exports continue to be buffeted by U.S. tariffs, while domestic demand appears to be picking up. Household spending is expected to continue growing moderately, supported by past cuts in interest rates and rising disposable incomes. U.S. tariffs and related uncertainty have held back business investment, but we expect some modest strengthening in investment as businesses adjust to the new trade environment and governments increase infrastructure spending. The impact of U.S. tariffs can also be seen in the labor market. Employment weakened in the first half of 2025 as sectors hit hard by U.S. tariffs cut production and jobs. In recent months, overall employment has risen, led by hiring in services like healthcare. At the same time, slowing population growth is reducing the number of new entrants into the labor market. Still, the unemployment rate remains high at 6.8%. Youth unemployment is particularly elevated, and relatively few businesses say they plan to hire more workers in coming months. Overall, economic growth is expected to pick up gradually. The Bank of Canada projects annual average GDP growth of 1.1% in 2026 and 1.5% in 2027, broadly in line with our October projection. Turning to inflation, it averaged 2.1% last year and has now been within the 1% to 3% band for 2 years. If we focus on recent movements, CPI inflation rose to 2.4% in December, boosted by base year effects linked to last year's GST-HST holiday. The bank's preferred measures of core inflation have eased from 3% in October to around 2.5% in December. The bank expects CPI inflation to stay close to the 2% target over the projection, as tariff-related cost pressures are offset by excess supply. Uncertainty around this projection is unusually high. Geopolitical risks are elevated, and the upcoming review of the Canada-US-Mexico agreement is an important risk to the outlook. It's also still too early to tell how the Canadian economy will adjust to current tariffs and ongoing uncertainty. The transition to the new trade environment could be smoother than we expect, with stronger business and household spending. Alternatively, the labor market could weaken further as trade impacts deepen, leading to lower household spending. And financial conditions could also tighten if volatility returns to markets. Considering both our baseline forecast and the risks, the Governing Council discussed the future path of monetary policy. While Council judges the current policy rate is appropriate based on our outlook, the consensus was that elevated uncertainty makes it difficult to predict the timing or direction of the next change in the policy interest rate. So let me wrap up. L'économie canadienne s'ajuste au vent contraire de nature structurelle liée au protectionnisme américain. Dans la stabilité des prix and a more integrated internal market will support some recovery in our productive capacity, but it will take some time. Monetary policy cannot compensate for the structural damage caused by tariffs, and it can't target hard-hit sectors of the economy. But it can play a supporting role, helping the economy through this period of structural adjustment, while maintaining inflation close to the 2% target. The bank is committed to ensuring that Canadians continue to have confidence in price stability through this period of global upheaval. And with that, the Senior Deputy Governor and I will be very pleased to take your questions.
Okay, we'll leave it there. So they're trying to steady the ship. They're trying to make sure they have a steady hand at the wheel. And they're doing all of this in the face of uncertainty, which is caused by Donald Trump and his economic policies. The thing is, I'm gonna bring this article back up. I think this is the right one. You scroll down here, and this is the key to the whole thing. Growth patterns quite volatile. Scroll down further, more headlines. No rate hikes, no panic. Experts say stability may sway hesitant buyers. I think that we're past where I wanted to go with this. Okay. Scroll down, scroll down. Keep going right here. Housing market cools. Bank of Canada put more emphasis on uncertainty today. TD Bank. Emphasis on uncertainty, and the statement was prominent. TD Bank senior economist Andrew Hensick wrote in a research note on Wednesday, again, focusing on that word. Markets are optimistic about Canada's path in the global shift. The case for further easing is weak despite rising trade risks. So RBC saying, we should refrain from printing money, essentially, at this point. No need for it because we have enough liquidity. Bank of Canada justified in keeping powder dry. In other words, 9 Point Partners saying that this is the right decision. The bank will begin easing policy in the first half of 2026. Well, we'll see about that. Keep going. Getting to the most important thing. Right here, Macklem says today, safe haven rule of the US dollar has been dented. That's the key right there. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says the role of the US dollar as a safe haven currency has been damaged. He says right here, people don't want as much exposure to the US dollar, he told reporters today at that news conference. That has been reflected in the value of the US dollar. At the same time, you're seeing other safe havens, but most notably gold is up a lot. Gold is up because the US dollar is, in real terms, losing its value. Why is it losing its value? Because the US dollar is not on the gold standard anymore. It's a fiat currency. And so its real value is predicated on the promise of and the certainty of economic output of the US economy. Confidence, trust in the U.S. economy, that the economy will produce, that the companies inside the United States, that workers, that the entire economy will produce dividends, that it will produce profits, that it will then support the dollar, which is just a medium of exchange and a store of value. And so people run to the dollar because it has traditionally been seen, especially since after World War II, as a safe place to put your money. You can put your US dollars in a savings account, and you know that it won't get eaten up by too much inflation. It won't decline in value too much versus other currencies or other stores of value like gold, silver. Not so anymore. Why is that? Because of Donald Trump and his trade policies. He's creating chaos. He's undermining confidence in the U.S. economy. He's therefore undermining confidence in the U.S. dollar as a store of value. That's a critical point. Macklem, days of open rules-based trade with the United States are over. A sidebar, key. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem echoed recent remarks by Prime Minister Mark Carney, stating Wednesday that the days of open rules-based trade with the United States are over. Last week, in a widely praised speech in Davos, Carney said, middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we are on the menu. The old order is not coming back, he added at the economics conference in Switzerland. We should not mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. That's being realistic. That is understanding that Canada as a middle power does not have enough weight to dictate economic outcomes globally. We can lead, be a leader, and work with others, and we do have some weight. But the United States, with the world reserve currency, is Godzilla, both militarily and economically. But Trump is destroying it with his economic policies. People are leaving the US dollar behind. Didn't have to be like this. It's just that Donald Trump is an economic moron. And he doesn't understand. He thinks he can use the US dollar as a weapon. He thinks he can use the US economy as a weapon without consequence because they're so big and so powerful. He thinks he can threaten, insult his way to some sort of a trade deal with Canada that will put us on our knees and have us begging to join the United States as the 51st state simply for economic salvation. And it's not going to happen. The truth of the matter is, the United States is about $38 trillion in debt. That in itself affects confidence around the world in the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar. There is increasing competition from BRICS nations. There is de-dollarization that's already underway globally. And Donald Trump is going around the world with his chest puffed out, using the dollar and the U.S. economy as a weapon, beating allies over the head with it, trying to beat everyone into submission to give him whatever it is that he thinks he wants, acting like an economic bully. What you saw here today was the Bank of Canada taking a reserved approach, not jumping the gun, not worrying, not panicking, and saying, oh my God, we need to do something to stimulate the economy. We better adjust interest rates in order to stimulate, say, consumer spending. Better drop those interest rates, make money less expensive. That's what we'll do. Yeah, then the economy will boom. No, that's a mistake. You drop the interest rates like that to stimulate the economy. With the current situation we have, you'll get more inflation. You'll get way more inflation, which really undermines people's savings, erodes all of that. It means you're going to end up working for less. That would be the wrong decision. And we're not really sure where all of this stuff is going. All of these trade negotiations, even today, as the United States, Canada made what looks like is going to be another deal with another country today. It puts Canada on a pretty solid footing in the automotive sector. Well, this guy, let me get the clip here. I have to find it. There it is. The U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. More tough talk. This is the guy who just yesterday, the day before, with Sean Hannity, tried to embarrass Mark Carney by saying, oh, yeah, well, he was talking tough in Davos, but then he walked back his comments. It's important to frame these things properly. Bessent is being a bully. And he kind of doubled down on that here again today, saying, warning, the Prime Minister, again, not to pick a fight with Godzilla, the United States, Donald Trump, ahead of these Kuzma negotiations, Canada characterizing them as a review. Well, Donald Trump is saying, oh, I don't even know if we're going to review it. We don't really care. Really? Okay, well, here's Bessent. Listen to what he says today.
What about Canada? We've got a bit of a rift there lately, and there's different accounts between you and Prime Minister Mark Carney about that call this week post-Davos with President Trump. He says that he dug in and reinforced the message. You said that he walked it back.
I was on the call. Prime Minister Carney, in my investment career, I've seen what happens when a technocrat tries to pivot and become a politician. It never really works out well. So I would just encourage Prime Minister Carney to do what he thinks is best for the Canadian people, not his own virtue signaling, because we do have a USMCA negotiation coming up. And he rose to power on an anti-American, anti-Trump message. And that's not a great place to be when you're negotiating with an economy that is multiple larger than you are and your biggest trading partner. In the end, I think we will end up in a good place. It may not be a straight line.
Are you saying that they will face consequences in these trade negotiations, reopening the USMCA?
I am saying that I would not pick a fight going into USMCA to score some cheap political points. Either you are working for your own political career or you're working for the Canadian people.
What about our...
Who's picking a fight with whom? We didn't ask for this fight. Trump's picking the fight. Besson's on Trump's team. They're picking the fight. That rhetoric right there, that's victim blaming again. This is a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. He knows it. And what Carney is doing, I don't really care if you criticize me or you're such a libtard. Shut up. I just don't care, idiot. Okay, that's my response to an idiotic statement. They're doing the right thing. They're doing the only thing Canada can do, short of giving up and just handing over sovereignty and joining the United States as the 51st state. Well, we're not doing that. The government's not going to do that. So what are we doing? We're going out, we're making new deals all around the world while complying with the terms of existing agreements, including CUSMA, or the USMCA, the trade deal that Trump made in his first presidency with Canada. And he said at the time it was the best trade deal ever. Now it's the worst trade deal ever. Well, Canada's making the right moves. Look at this. Ottawa, South Korea, in talks to bring auto manufacturing to Canada. That's Hyundai we're talking about, folks. Federal government has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Republic of Korea that includes discussions to bring auto manufacturing to Canada. Two sources told CTV News. The MOU, which is not binding, calls for closer industrial cooperation on the future of mobility, including talks on the auto sector, and was signed by Industry Minister Melanie Joly and her South Korean counterpart, Minister Jung Kan Kim, after they met in Ottawa yesterday. CTV News is not identifying the sources because they were not authorized to speak publicly on the matter. Of course not, because they're not actually trying to pick a fight with the United States, and this is going to piss Donald Trump off if he gets wind of it. Hyundai representatives, along with Hanwha Ocean, a competitor to supply Canada's next generation of submarines, were part of South Korean delegation. Korea is negotiating, competing to get the Canadian submarine contract. These are all things that play into these kinds of negotiations. Canada has leverage there in order to get some sort of a deal. Hyundai, not a manufacturing company in Canada, but they do sell cars here. And as a result, in order to secure access to the market and to make a better deal, there's stuff going on. There's talks going on in the background with companies like Hyundai, with the government of South Korea, which is an economic powerhouse, to do more trade with Canada. This is what Canada should be doing. This is what Canada is doing. They're doing their job. That's all it comes down to. All the political spin that I'm seeing, all the exaggeration, taking things out of context, is not really helpful if you really want to understand what's going on. And the political realism coming from Carney in Davos, well, it highlights some of the fallacies, the partial falsehoods, not that everything in the rules-based international order was false, but some things were and have been for a long time. Carney called that out. When he's acknowledging New World Order, he's acknowledging that we are in the middle of a transition to the next phase of whatever this New World Order is. And he's acknowledging that Canada is not really at the helm. Canada's not directing the New World Order. I've never heard him call for the New World Order to be ushered in. He used the phrase. Then I see all the political critics and the the usual suspects out there, these influencers, all start to chime in and say that he's calling for it, that he's helping, he's ushering it in, or pick your phrase, that he's behind the whole conspiracy. No, he's just acknowledging that the world is in a state of flux, that we are marching towards some sort of a new world order. And he's calling out the United States, and Donald Trump did so in that speech in Davos. And he's saying, this is what's happening. We're acknowledging it, but we don't necessarily have to just go along, because from a moral and ethical, a values perspective, it's immoral, it's wrong, and we don't want to be part of that. So we're offering the world a different path, and that is to work cooperatively together with other countries. Now, you might have your head blow up, and you might have your head spinning around and vomiting pea soup because you're having some sort of an exorcism type moment, or something, I don't know, or weird out of body experience where you're having a visit from the evil devil. I don't know, man. That's just realistic. I've been telling you for a long time. What these people have been telling you, like people like Besant, a lot of these streamers, they're saying, oh, the World Economic Forum and this and that, and this is the New World Order. Folks, the New World Order is sitting in the White House right now, and you thought that he was going to be your savior. He's the New World Order. Putin's the New World Order. Xi's the New World Order. I keep showing you. I'm telling you that I know the philosophy. I know the sources of it. And this is just playing out now. Carney, Canada, all these smaller countries, all of us, we're all caught up in it, caught in the middle, trying to find some way to survive so we don't get swallowed up, so we can resist this whole thing. That's what Carney's job is right now. And yeah, he may, in the end up betraying the country. I don't know. It depends on the realities that we face at any given time during this, I would say, global crisis brought upon us by these crazy, power-mad, freakazoid world leaders. Smaller countries, we're just trying to navigate through this. Carney doesn't have enough power on his own to do all this stuff. But will he bend the knee in order to save at least the illusion of sovereignty for Canada? If he does, then the United States effectively takes us over anyway. Or do we push back and resist this? He's making a choice. We're all in a place where we can make a choice. I see what's going on in the streets down in the U.S. Those are values-based issues. Do I want to be part of the violence? And do I want to be part of a country that goes and just kidnaps presidents from other countries in order to satisfy their own national self-interests with no regard at all for any kind of rules around the world? Just do whatever you want. If you have the technology and the military might, you just go in and do whatever the hell you want. That's just not right. There was an exchange today between Rand Paul, Marco Rubio. Rand Paul asking that very question. What would the United States do if some other country decided that the president of the United States was guilty of some sort of a crime and they swooped in and kidnapped the US president? Would the United States just stand for it? No. Be held to pay. And then some. The likes of which the world had never seen before. This was the other day. All related. This was, I can find it here. Yeah, this is the clip that had everybody's heads blowing up. And this is what gave Carney's political opponents the ammunition they were looking for to light social media on fire. I think maybe he even did it on purpose. Just to get a rise out of people. I don't know. I wouldn't have chosen the words. Scott Moe today commenting on it, Premier of Saskatchewan. He commented on it. Carney just used the words. Here's what he said. Listen to it. Does he say, I sure hope the New World Order comes in real soon?
Mentioned mine is the first visit of a Canadian Prime Minister to China in nearly a decade.
He was speaking to a Chinese delegation, of course, during the trip to China. This is where this comes from.
The world has changed much since that last visit. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
He's like, what the hell? Why did you say that? Well, is he wrong? Is it happening or not? Is it happening or not? Yeah, it's happening. He's just acknowledging it. Did he say, hey, how about that New World Order? Pretty freaking awesome, eh? Okay, so my grand scheme is coming together, and my plan, our plan for the New World Order is right in there. Okay, let's push the execute button and make it all happen, folks. No, that's not really what he's saying. He's acknowledging that it's happening, and he's dealing with the realities of that. Just take your brain matter, scoop it all up, put it back in your head, and start to try and think a little bit again, okay? All right. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to be fine. Listen.
It's a partnership with new focus and greater depth and a sense of purpose. And I look forward to realizing its promise and building on it in the years to come. Partnership leverages our strengths to create greater stability, security, sustainability, and prosperity for all our peoples. And I look forward to this working session to advance those objectives. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, we have a carve out. So what Carney did is he went there, he was speaking diplomatically. He talks about the New World Order, acknowledging that it's a real thing. Nothing, you can't stop the plan. Okay. Doesn't mean he trusts it. In fact, contrary to that, he's taking steps to run counter to what Donald Trump is doing with his tariffs and the attacks on Canada and our sovereignty and all other countries around the world using tariffs because he's an economic bully. And he's saying, no, we're going to trade with other countries, including China, including South Korea, including Japan, including the European Union, Germany, the UK, all of these countries. We're going to expand our trading relationships all around the world. He comes back with a deal that some say is worth at least $1 trillion with China. But what does that really mean? 49,000 Chinese EVs coming into the Canadian market. In exchange, those canola tariffs that all the conservative influencers out there, who are not really conservatives, by the way, when their heads blew up over the canola tariffs and they were blaming the government, they said, you have to do something about it. You have to do something about it, especially all the Westies. Well, Carney went and did something about it. And now they're saying, oh, well, see, he's a globalist. So you're not getting truthful, accurate analysis. You're getting political spin and rhetoric on this stupid box, this internet thing. And what you're getting from the mainstream media is largely, I would say, also somewhat superficial. He's doing what he has to do to save the damn country and make the economy grow in Canada in the face of all this uncertainty from the United States. And uncertainty is the key. The United States does not have nearly as much leverage as Bessent would have us believe, or Trump. Carney knows that. And if you navigate properly, we'll be more than fine. We'll replace all that trade. Doug Ford today still focused on Ford, GM, Chrysler, which are not American companies. They're all multinationals. Chrysler is part of Stellantis. That's based in Europe. And the Brampton plant, a lot of history there with the Brampton plant. It's basically sitting idle. Stellantis made some promises to the Canadian government in exchange for subsidies, tax breaks, etc., worth a lot of money. And the Ontario government, the Canadian government, is still trying to find a way to hold the feet of Stellantis to the fire in order to make sure they put another product in there. And we'll see how that goes. It's not over yet, not by a long shot. They haven't even gotten into the negotiations yet over Kuzma. And this is the way Donald Trump rolls anyway. Put maximum pressure on, even to the point where he might take steps to split up your country in order to get a better deal. Because he's freaking desperate. That's why he needs all these countries in order to come up with the value, with the money, with the wealth to pay off the massive debts that the United States has accumulated over the years. $38 trillion. It's impossible to pay it off with what they have. If he doesn't take over these countries, the United States is toast. So why should we even care if we piss him off? You want to join the US? Yeah, well, you're gonna be saddled with that debt. It's like marrying somebody who has been very careless with their credit cards over the years. You marry them, you just married their financial problems. And they've got plenty of them. There are ways to solve it, but what Trump is doing, this is not how you do it. This is how you make it all worse. Except, you see, this can solve it. Because ultimately what he's going to do is crash the U.S. economy. That will be the Great Reset. You want to be tied to that directly? You want to be totally integrated into that? We've seen this playbook before through history. Saw it after the fall of the Soviet Union. That's what happened over there. They crashed the economy intentionally. And you know what happens when they do that? The rich dudes, people like Donald Trump's oligarch friends, they're the ones who will cash in because they'll know when it's coming and they'll sell all their stocks. They'll liquidate. I think we've even seen Warren Buffett doing some of that of late. And when all of that is gone and they're just holding cash or converted into other things like gold because they won't want to be holding it in US dollars, and the economy does crash, and they can cause the crash by selling off all their assets because they're already so flippin' rich that they're flying around in giant space dildos. And when they crash it, they won't be holding. They will have sold. And then they go in and buy up for pennies on the dollar. When all of us peasants, the unwashed masses who have our retirement funds and everything else built into the system, they come in and swallow it all up, and bankruptcies galore, but they'll own everything. You'll own nothing, and you're going to be very, very unhappy, especially if you're part of it and part of the 51st frickin' state. Carney knows that. The South Koreans know that. All these other middle powers know that. Together, there's strength and resiliency. I don't think you want to be part of it. Unless you're a big, rich oligarch. Somebody has a ton of wealth and a giant flying dildo. And you can afford your own spaceship. I mean, that's how far, this is how crazy it has become, right? Like, I'm a free market guy, but these guys didn't get that rich because of the free market. They got that rich because it's all rigged, which Donald Trump has always said. It's all rigged. He's been telling you that from the beginning, and now he's in the White House and he's rigging it all. This is the other thing that Macklem highlighted today. The independence of the Federal Reserve is at risk. Because why? Macklem is citing this. This is why the US dollar is no longer trusted. The US economy is no longer trusted the way that it was. People are worried about what is going on there because Trump is saying, screw the free market, screw the independence of the Federal Reserve. I want a controlled, centrally planned economy, and I want to be the guy holding all the levers and controlling it. I want Jerome Powell out, and he's taking steps to take control of the Federal Reserve himself so that he becomes the guy who sets the interest rates. If he does that, nobody is going to trust it anymore because now you have a guy who is basically using the entire system to enrich only himself and his rich friends. That's why there's supposed to be distance between the president and the Federal Reserve. That's why Mark Carney wasn't sitting at the table today and hasn't been sitting at the table telling Macklem what to set the interest rate at. It has to be done independently. It has to be done without bias, and it has to be done in a way that it doesn't just unfairly benefit one person or another or one company or another. It has to be impartial. That's why you need distance, and the Bank of Canada is distanced directly from the Canadian government. The Federal Reserve is supposed to be in the United States, and the Bank of Canada is not the Federal Reserve. Our systems are connected or integrated. People are very confused about it because they don't understand really how it works. So many Canadians think that we're on the Federal Reserve or something. We're not. We have our own central bank. That's what happened today. The central bank, Macklem, sat down and set their key interest rate, the cost of money, what it costs other banks to borrow or to buy money, Canadian dollars, at what interest. What it highlights is exactly what I said. The United States economy under Donald Trump is cracking. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Gold is up because the dollar is losing its value. The economy, it's no longer trusted. Nobody trusts Trump because he just doesn't keep his promises. He says whatever, and he just violates his deals. He's already violated Kuzma. What good is a deal with him anyway? It doesn't even matter at this point. Don't piss him off. You won't get a good deal. Yeah, you're not going to get a good deal no matter what, because any deal that you make isn't worth the paper it's written on, because Godzilla is just going to breathe fire on it and burn it up if he decides later that he doesn't like it. He's already doing it. 100% tariffs on all Canadian goods, that would be a direct violation of the United States, Mexico, Canada free trade agreement. He doesn't care. Canada didn't violate the agreement. Canada went to China and made a deal in one sector, which is in compliance with Kuzma. But because it's listed as a non-market economy, which is to say an economy that is centrally planned, which it sort of is, but it isn't, because they're actually more capitalistic than the United States today. But because Canada, it's listed there as a non-market economy, so you can't have a full up, all across the board free trade agreement with China, because you know why? It would destroy the freaking United States. That's why, because they can't compete. China, Canada together would eat the United States lunch and dinner and breakfast, and then more. We'd have dessert because they're too far in debt, because they haven't been responsible. They haven't paid their bills. It's not because we're ripping them off, because they haven't paid their bills. They haven't been responsible enough. They've just been spending money like it's water and going out of style, and it's not sustainable. So we're going to be fine unless Godzilla rolls in here with tanks, F-35s, and everything else, and decides that they're going to take us over. Therein lies the politics, right? There's the danger. What the hell do you think is really going on out in Alberta? Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Be careful what you vote for. You might just get it, but not in the way that you think you're going to get it. He'll give it to you, all right. Here's Carney today being scrummed by reporters. He's meeting tomorrow with all the premiers, by the way. Here's the brief exchange.
Given the current given the current state of relations with the U.S., what hope do you have that Kuzma will be renewed after July?
Relations are good. We have good conversations, good back and forth. There's a lot of work to be done for the review of Kuzma. That work has started, both reviews in the United States, internal reviews and consultations. That work has started in Mexico. It's finished in Canada. We'll be ready to sit down, and the process will continue.
And that's that. And again, Scott Moe, just to go back to that New World Order comment from Carney, he's just telling CTV today that he wouldn't have used that phrase either. I wouldn't have used it because he says that it was interpreted by a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. I know how a lot of you are interpreting what he said. He wants it. Well, don't be so quick to judge it that way. We'll give it time. It doesn't look to me like this is not falling into line with the United States. Maybe some of it's a charade. I don't know. But give it time. He's pissing off Trump, that's for sure. But oh well. Let's see how tough the tough guy really is, I guess. If it's going to get really tough, then we'll deal with that. Nobody, I don't want to fight. I don't think Carney wants to fight. Nobody really wants to fight. Best way to win a fight is to avoid a fight. But at the same time, like I said the other night, you have a right to defend yourself. Doesn't mean you have to go around picking a fight, but we didn't pick the fight. This is just the pattern with the Trump regime, administration, whatever the hell this thing is. They flip the script. They turn it upside down. They get their influencers to say, don't believe what you're seeing even online. Oh, no, it's not us. It's look what Mark Carney's doing. He's picking a fight. Look what the Canadians are doing. They're picking a fight. We're not picking a fight. We didn't pick this fight. This was completely unnecessary. This is all coming from the White House. All of it. So you can have your opinion on it, but it should be based on facts and reality, not on a skewed perception of what's going on out there. Let me listen to Trump. Here he is today on the Will Cain Show, talking about the auto plants. Oh, yeah, they're all closing down. They're all moving to the United States. That's what he wants. In his dreams, that's what he wants. And some of that probably and certainly could happen because of the tariffs. But I wouldn't be so sure I wouldn't be betting 100% on the United States on all of this stuff. You're seeing that today with this story about South Korea.
Yeah. I'm curious what your plan is if the Supreme Court rules negatively on your tariffs. You talk about the tariffs
We'll have to find another way. Look,
is there a plan B?
Yeah, the tariffs have been indispensable towards success. We've taken in $600 billion in tariffs. I gave the farmers $12 billion last week. I took them out of tariff money.
What he just said there proves what I've been saying all along. The government collects all that money. It's a tax on American people. It's a giant tax on U.S. consumers and manufacturers, the U.S. citizens. That money does not go to the people. Then he turns around and redistributes as much as he sees fit. Not all of it. It's going to the government because he's got this huge debt. And then he turns around and redistributes the money. Okay, I gave $12 billion to farmers, he says, probably exaggerating. Can't believe anything he says. You can't trust anything that Donald Trump says anymore. So I don't even know if what he's saying is true or how much he really gave to the farmers. It could be $1 billion. It might be $500. It might not. It might be zero. He could be just playing games. We don't know. You can't trust the guy. That's the biggest problem. But the other big problem is that he's running a centrally planned non-market economy, which is exactly what I've always been opposed to. I'm a free market guy. This is the absolute opposite of that. He's not a conservative. He's not a free market guy. He's a frickin' problem.
It's kept the unfair competition out of our country. Now, they can build their auto plant here, but they can't build a plant in some place with, labor costs for a penny and then sell it into this country and then charge people a lot of money for a car. So the only way they can do that, they have to build the plants here. So the big auto companies from Germany, from Mexico, from Canada, Mexico and Canada are literally, their plants are closing down. They're moving into this country. So we have more activity than we've ever had. Yeah.
I'm curious what your plan.
That's the plan. He's been saying that they have all this activity and they're building all these auto plants now. No, they're not. They have. I've researched it. They have a couple of plants that are being built currently. Some of that stuff is still happening because they're ongoing projects. I think there are 4 in total. 2 are fairly new, and the other 2 are still factories that are being constructed from the Biden era. And they're related to the electrification of the auto industry. And some of that stuff is still continuing, even though he's tapped the brakes on it. And then they have these frameworks for agreements that may or may not come to fruition. Most of that stuff wouldn't even happen until after he is out of office. A lot of it. You have really like 2.5 years left. If you really look at what he can do, maybe, well, you could say 3, because he can sort of rule from the Oval Office right up until the last day of his presidency, assuming that you have elections at the end of all this. But we're already through year 1. And to take all of this stuff and make it all happen in the space of just a few years, these are major projects. Whatever happens here has to extend into the next presidency, whoever that is, whether it's him for an additional term or a successor, fill in the blank, and then we'll see. But these are just frameworks for agreements. So he's exaggerating again. Again, you can't trust what Trump is doing. And that's the other thing. People are afraid of him because he's got nukes and a powerful military and a powerful economy, because even in debt, you can leverage things with borrowed money or by printing more money. And when you're integrated into the world economy, you can disrupt everybody's economy and lives. But people don't trust him. That's why South Korea is talking to Canada, because Canada is viewed now as a trusting, a reliable partner. We honor our agreements. We abide by our contracts. We have a free trade agreement with the United States. Carney went to China. He made a deal, but it did not violate that deal. Trump comes back, threatens tariffs of 100% on everything, which is a direct violation of the deal, because you can't trust the guy. You can't trust the United States. He's destroying the U.S. And when you have a fiat currency, trust is everything. Everything, man. You blow that up, you're blowing up your currency, you're blowing up your country. Okay, let's go here now to Doug Ford. Today, news conference, Premier of Ontario. He was there with the New Brunswick Premier as well, talking about economic cooperation. But during the Q&A after their formal address to the media today, they answered questions, and Trump was, of course, the focus of a lot of what was being talked about. And Doug Ford is still, concerned about this EV deal with China, because he's very tied in with the Auto Manufacturers Association, with all the parts companies, the whole industry. And he's still in his head saying, we have to deal with the United States, and we should, if we can. But if Trump's going to act like this and just try to take those factories away, you need to do something different. Anyway, today, here's what he just said at the tail end. So I'll play it for you.
Hi, Premier Ford. It's Tom Perry with CBC. I just wanted to ask you, go back to an earlier question. Sure. Did the Prime Minister offer you any kind of assurances on this deal to bring Chinese EVs into Canada? Because it sounds like you've still got some pretty deep concerns about that.
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. I don't get into personal details, but at a high level, we had a great conversation with the Prime Minister and Minister Jolie. She's handling that file. And it's all about making sure that we protect our domestic manufacturers, put money in there to support them. I think I've been very clear how I feel about bringing in Chinese spy vehicles, and that's where I stand. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to be focusing on companies like Ford, like General Motors, Toyota, Honda, and yes, Stellantis.
That concludes our press conference.
Okay. Okay. But here's the thing. Like, who's spying on us the most? The United States. And what do you mean vehicles spy on you? What? Yeah, they sort of do. They're collecting data. All the new modern cars do. They all do it. You buy a Ford, it's going to spy on you. Okay. They're going to monitor everything about what you do. They have computers on them now, like all the new cars, whatever the company is. You get into an accident, they can, a lot of them have now recording devices so they know whether you were accelerating, decelerating, how fast you were driving. They can send information back to insurance companies to monitor your driving habits. That's spying on you. That's what the kind of spying that these cars are engaged in. What else are they doing? Like, do you really think they care if you go to the store? Are you that important to them? They're down the road, like, it doesn't matter, is my point. They're all doing it. They're all going to do it. Doesn't matter whether it's the Chinese, or if you're buying a Russian Lada, or if you're buying an American built now Ford F-150 or a Ford Lightning electric pickup or whatever it might be. They're all going to spy on you. It's a little bit, I get it, Doug, and I understand the concern, but put it in perspective. There's nothing that your cell phone isn't already doing to you that would violate your personal freedom that a vehicle is going to do. They can already track you with your phone. The phone is the key. The vehicles, they want information they can send to oil change places so they can get data, and unless we legislate against this kind of stuff. How far have you driven your car? Oh, this guy's due for an oil change. Now they can sell that information to Jiffy Lube, and then Jiffy Lube has the marketing department, and then they can pay Meta to run Facebook ads and put them in front of you so that when you're due for the oil change, they're going to hit you with all these ads saying you should get your oil changed right now. And at Jiffy Lube, we have a special on. You should stop in and spend your $100 with us today. At just the right time. That's targeted marketing. That's what they're spying on you for, to get you to spend your dollars. And that every step of the way, the people who control that information and data, they're all making money. And maybe they want to eat your brains. Could be. It could be. You never know. What else would you think they're doing with these things? I'm looking in the chat. I'm not looking on the other chat. I'm just looking at this one. Let me go over here. Yeah. 1272 B51, whatever that is. Depends on where the store is. Oh, that's kind of true. What else do we have in here? Just reading some of the stuff. I'll believe it when the documents are signed. No, I think you're probably further along with this South Korean deal than anybody realizes, because it isn't just about cars. It's about the submarine deal, which is a big deal. There's a lot of money there. And it's because South Korea Hyundai doesn't build anything here, and it's a mobility agreement. And if you know anything about Hyundai, it's a company that doesn't just build cars. They build all kinds of other products. They're even light years ahead when it comes to things like flying cars. And I would say that in many respects, they probably even have technology and production techniques that far surpass what Elon Musk has with Tesla. And you can go online and you can see that Hyundai is involved in a wide range of things, including like public mobility through flying taxis. And they have a whole system set up with like docking stations for flying vehicles to land on top of buildings, for public transit by air. And I've been looking at the stuff for the past few years. I ran some of it on my my automotive show. It's what they've got the thing down, man. This is like the Jetsons, and Hyundai's the company doing it. So yeah, we should be talking to those guys for sure, and we are. And I think they're probably closer to making a deal than you think. And they need what Canada has, you see, because we have the resources, we have the critical minerals, we have the nickel, we have the aluminum, we have the steel, we have all the things that a company like Hyundai needs. We can supply it. So Canada's in a much better place than people realize. Anyway, then North Korea will invade and poof, she was gone. Oh, well, that could happen. But North Korea is not South Korea. We're talking about South Korea. And CBC Brown says Hyundai is huge. Yeah, they are huge. Huge company. So fear not, Canuckistanians. All is not lost, at least not yet. That's all I'm saying. Give it time to play out. It's all with Trump, everything is always taken to the extreme, and then he tacos out, pivots back, settles for something less. And once you know his game plan and you understand, what his real play is, you know enough to just not get too upset and not make the mistake of panicking. And play your strong cards, because we have plenty of them at the right time. I don't know if it's chess. I don't think it is. I think it's more a game of poker with Trump. Here's the interim leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada today saying that what we need in Canada is an emergency debate on Trump's threats to Canada. News conference earlier today.
On the recent deeply concerning statements and actions by the Trump administration that have grave implications for the sovereignty and security of Canada. On January 3rd, President Trump ordered American forces to disregard international law and core principles of national sovereignty by attacking Venezuela, a United Nations member state. Following this act, President Trump stated that the U.S. would, quote, run the country, end quote, and specifically referenced Venezuela's oil reserves as a prime motivation for this assault. This aggression was followed by President Trump's announcement of the establishment of a Dunro Doctrine, considering the entire Western Hemisphere to be within the sole hegemonic control of the United States. President Trump and senior U.S. administration officials then expressed their intent to seize Greenland, an internationally recognized territory of Denmark, another UN member state, and importantly, NATO member. They justified this aggression by referencing Greenland's Arctic proximity, mineral reserves, and inadequate defense capacity. All of these actions and words have direct application to Canada. Indeed, they were graphically depicted in a photo from the Oval Office itself, superimposing the U.S. flag over a map of Canada. It is clear that Canada faces serious economic, political, and military threats.
I'm going to pause there. This is why it is so important to stay grounded and focus on reality and insist on being accurate and being real and not letting someone like Donald Trump reshape your reality. That's what happened with the Gulf of Mexico. I said this is really important. This is a big part of the game because this is the psychological aspect of it. He throws it out there as though he's already decided that this is a done deal. And when people start to acknowledge it and talk about it as though it could be something, even just saying maybe it could happen, then you're away to the races. And now you've cracked that door open and he stuck his foot in, and now he's going to barge in there. Don't give it to him. Don't give him your mind. Don't give him your words. Don't give him your acknowledgement and your unintentional support. Insist. Say it is what? Gulf of Mexico. That's what it is. It's not what he says it is. What is this place? It's Canada. That's right. It's not what he says it is. There's a big Canadian flag over our country. There's no stars and stripes up here. We love the United States, but he doesn't get to take it just by putting a graphic over top of a map. Nor does he get to do that to Greenland. What he's doing is very dangerous because he's playing with people's perceptions of reality, using that as a weapon. And as a result, now we have NATO troops stationed in Greenland because there is this perceived threat. I would say a very real threat from the United States. Something else that I really want nothing to do with. Why would we ever support invading a friend's country, an allied country, a country that's friendly to us? They're not our enemy. We can do whatever we want up there anyway. At least the United States can. They can have all the military bases they want. They've already had that agreement. This is because it's not about the military bases. It's about the moolah. So don't let him change your reality. So much of this I see going on in every aspect of everything these days. Let's go back to the let's go back to this.
From the Trump administration. These actions and statements constitute a new and troubling U.S. approach to security and constitute non-adherence to international norms. They follow repeated and continuing threats made to Canada since Donald Trump became president. Taken together, these developments have urgent, pressing, and profound implications for Canadian security and sovereignty. Many observers from across the political spectrum have publicly identified Canada's vulnerability as a result. Voices as diverse as Jason Kenney and Bob Ray, former Communications Security Establishment official Artur Wilczynski, academics like Thomas Homer Dixon, and artists like Neil Young. Having just returned from almost a week in Nunavut, I can tell you that we heard repeated reports of alarm from residents of Canada's Arctic, in particular from Grise Fjord, which is closer to Greenland than it is to Ottawa. It's 340 kilometers from Greenland. It's 3,400 kilometers from Ottawa. The Prime Minister recently addressed world leaders outlining the threat posed by the U.S. administration and the wide-ranging consequences that this poses for Canada and the global order. New Democrats believe it is vital that members of Parliament be afforded an opportunity to speak to these important matters which gravely and urgently impact our sovereignty, our security, and our place in the world. Thank you very much. And before I take your questions, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Laurie Idlout, our Member of Parliament from Nunavut, for her to say a few words.
Okay. You have the idea. If you want to watch it, you can find that online easily. The point is, people are worried. And yeah, Donald Trump is reshaping everyone's perception of reality. They are, in the case of Alex Preddy, the Trump administration or whatever, they're trying to, well, before I get to that, let me come over here to reinforce what I was saying about what the States is doing under Donald Trump and the Secretary of State, what he's doing. He was under fire. This is the clip that I was talking about earlier between this exchange between Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. Because Rand Paul is kind of getting it, right? Saying, what the hell are we really doing out there in Venezuela and around the world acting like this?
What it is, and let's vote on these things. But I think we're in violation of both the spirit and the law of the Constitution by bombing a capital, blockading a country, and removing elected officials. And we certainly wouldn't tolerate it, nor would I if someone did it to us.
Well, we didn't remove an elected official. We removed someone who was not elected, and it was actually an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and their system.
Our laws, indicted under our laws. Look, Bolsonaro says that Da Silva is not really the president of Brazil. Our president said Biden wasn't really the president. Hillary Clinton said in 2016 Trump wasn't the president. So you have these arguments, and I agree with you. It probably was, and most likely was, most assuredly was a bad election. He wasn't really elected. But at the same time, if that's our predicate, and you don't have to come to us because it's a drug bust, we're just removing somebody, you can see where it leads to, and it leads to chaos. And that's why we have rules like the Constitution, so we don't get so far out there that presidents can do whatever they want. It is this check and balance. And I would argue for 70 years we've been going the wrong way. It isn't just this president, but it's a debate that I think is worth having.
Valid point. Everything they've been doing internationally ignores what has been built up over since World War II. That's the old order, which is the rules-based international order. Just ignores it, and they've been ignoring it in many cases, not all cases. That's the partial lie that Mark Carney called out in Davos. They said, he's basically saying superpowers like the United States and Russia, and now even China, they say that they exempt themselves from the rules. They're above the rule of law internationally. They do whatever they want. And then they create this fake justification for doing whatever they want, going into a country and removing the leader of another country, whether, of duly elected, democratically elected or not. Who says that the United States, it's that any of their damn business? You see where it goes? That's what Rand Paul is saying. And the argument is, well, it's in our national interest, our national security interests. So then protect your border. Does it justify you going to another country and asserting now you're the dictator? This is the equivalent of staring into the deep, dark abyss and getting sucked down inside it and becoming the monster that you're supposed to be fighting. This is the United States making a grave error where they then violate the trust of the rest of the world. People lose confidence in the United States because you're overstepping your jurisdiction. The United States keeps saying, we don't want to be the policeman of the world. Oh, but you're only going to police what? The Western Hemisphere then? Well, who gives you control over that? Who says that you get to police that? Well, the Monroe Doctrine says so. Okay. Well, that's just something cooked up in the United States. You see, these are complex ideas, but really what it comes down to is fairly simple. Do you want to live in a world that's governed by people who just have the most power and the biggest weapons and the most guns? Or do you want to live in a rules-based international order? I want to live in the rules-based system, but I've been critical of it in the past myself as well, where I said, well, whose rules? Well, it's supposed to be rules set by the United Nations or by a group of countries working together to affect positive outcomes for the world, to promote democracy, to promote actual freedom. We haven't really had that because We've seen the superpowers just go in and violate things, and at the UN and these other world organizations, they've had veto power. So why the hell do you even want to pull out of it then, Donald? Well, because they don't want to pay for it. So he, in that, some ways, he's being more honest while he lies his ass off. He's being more honest about it than a lot of other presidents. He's just saying it's time to just blow it all up and lift this facade, this fake cover. I'm just going to do whatever I want because we're the United States and we'll make up all the rules, and the rule of law will be based in U.S. courts, which Rand Paul referenced right there. But who says that the United States court system has jurisdiction in Venezuela or Brazil or anywhere in South America, or in Canada? No, you have international tribunals and dispute resolution mechanisms. That's why you have international banks for settlements to make sure that everybody, when you make a deal with another country, the money flows through an international bank of settlements so that you make sure that everybody actually gets paid and it keeps everybody honest. With Trump at the helm, you can't even be sure you're going to get paid anymore. And more than that, he's just out there stealing stuff. He's stealing the oil from Venezuela, and better be careful. Looks like he might want to come here and do something similar to us as he reshapes our reality. That's the starting point. And then even after they, what's going on right now too is the Trump administration is playing this mind game with people in order to justify and defend and find excuses for everything that has been going on in Minneapolis. I refuse to just play this game where, well, if you're a journalist, you're just supposed to just keep your opinion to yourself and just let people talk. No, as a journalist, if something is demonstrably false, if you see somebody intentionally lying or engaging in some sort of deception, it's my duty to call that out. If you see a problem, it's my job to serve you by saying there's a deficiency here, there's a problem. That's what I'm doing right now with what I'm about to show you in Minnesota. They are trying to retroactively find justification for the killing of Alex Preddy. That is not actual justice. Because the way the law has to be applied to actually find justice in the Alex Preddy killing, everything really needs to focus on what happened at that moment, what was going through the minds of the officers, and a full investigation does need to be held, right? But what they're doing is they're trying to reach back and find things that smear the reputation of Alex Preddy, the 37-year-old man who was shot 10 times, reportedly, in the streets of Minnesota by ICE officers. 2 of them were told emptied guns, ammunition into the body of Alex Preddy. So they found this video today. Let me see if I can find it here for you. Here it is here. And it makes him look bad. And I'm fair and balanced. And I'm going to show it to you, but you need to understand what this really is. What Preddy is doing here is not right. This was some weeks ago or days ago or whatever, prior to the incident where he was shot. But so he spits on a police vehicle, which is an unmarked vehicle, and then he kicks it.
13th in Minneapolis.
So he spits on it and then kicks the tail light. Okay, so not good. Shouldn't have done that. Nobody's right when everybody's wrong, right? But does that justify the use of lethal force? Does that give a federal agent license to shoot and kill someone? No. Did he pull a weapon there? No. This was a separate incident. This was days or weeks before. When was this? I'm not sure what the dating is on it. I'm seeing different things online, but it's obviously prior on a different day. But you see, that's retroactive justification. That's going looking for some reason to make you not like the guy, to build public support for the officers who pulled the triggers. That's not the legal standard by which their actions need to be judged. There might be a possible scenario where that video might play into what happened. The only way I can see that being relevant in court would be to say that the officers involved in the shooting of Alex Preddy were maybe the same officers or were aware of Preddy prior to that and his behavior. And so they went into it with this knowledge that he had aggressively attacked a vehicle beforehand. But even then, does that justify the shooting? It has to be dealt with in a legal way. It has to be dealt with based on what the law says in Minnesota. Not really, it should not be dealt with in the court of public opinion. It's inevitable that all of this is going on. We're talking about it here. But this is all being done for political reasons. This is all being done to shape your perception of what happened there. The reality is he was, and we showed you here, the reality is he was disarmed. That's an extenuating circumstance that really weakens the position of the officers who shot the man 10 times. Not once. They fired 10 shots, reportedly. And you can see clearly what happened. They're saying, don't believe what you saw. It's the Gulf of Mexico. I saw what I saw. Let's have the investigation. Let's find out what other circumstances might be surrounding that. But don't let the political environment, don't let the political machine, this fifth generation warfare, information warfare, distort your perception of reality, like this guy, this Greg What's-His-Face from Newsmax. Have you seen this clip? See, his job, clearly, either he's volunteering for it or they've come to him and they've said, why don't you do something? He's trying to make you believe that there's justification for the officers shooting and killing the man because he had a cell phone in his hand and they might have mistaken it for a gun. That's a theory. That's just stuff being done to confuse you. This is part of the information war. This is a pro-Trump news outlet. I don't trust the mainstream media, Rick, anymore at all because blah, blah, blah. Well, do you trust this guy? Is he mainstream? He is establishment now. He's carrying water for the administration.
I want to show you something. Does that look like a gun? I think it does a little bit. It's a phone. It's black, like most phones. That's crazy stuff. I want to show you.
The entire clip is longer. It just, it is in its own way kind of funny because it's so sort of stupid. First of all, I didn't see Alex Preddy hold the phone like that. He didn't do that and point it at anybody. He's trying to confuse you, muddy the waters. It's disgusting, actually, what that is. He's not a journalist. He's something else. It's the Gulf of Mexico. It's Canada. I saw what I saw. If you come up with some real valid evidence, fine. Let's see it. Let's hear it. Let's have an independent investigation. You know, somebody else said something to me last night that I wasn't actually aware of. These ICE officers trained in part, at least in part, by Israel's IDF. To me, that's strange. Why? Because this is essentially a police agency. They're there to enforce laws. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to enforce laws. But they're not really being used like a police agency. They're being used as a paramilitary operation, and they've been trained as such. This is, I think, and they're under criticism because of this. The training, the approach is militaristic. It's military type training. The military doesn't really train to deal with civilian policing and enforcement operations. Police train to keep the peace, to protect the public, to serve and protect. The military is trained to go in and break things and kill people. And what I've seen myself, and I've dealt a lot with police over the years. I've been embedded with police. I was embedded for a time with a critical incident response team. I took some training for that in order to work as a journalist embedded with a CERT team here in Canada, the equivalent of a SWAT team. The police up here in Canada, and I think in most U.S. cities, they're focused on public safety. This ICE operation that's not what their focus is. They're going door to door. They're knocking on doors. They're dragging people out. They're taking people, throwing them on planes. Their tactics are military style. And the same person who told me that last night also said to me, yeah, but the military too, sometimes they use them for civilian operations. Yeah, that's true. Here in Canada, we do sometimes call out the military for domestic service, for non-military type operations. For instance, sometimes we've seen the military in Canada called out to provide assistance to the public in snowstorms. But that's a lot different than what we're seeing in the States, because when the military is used in that way, they're not there enforcing laws. They're out shoveling snow. They're not effecting arrests. They're there serving the public, but they're not there in an enforcement, a law enforcement capacity. That's still left to local and provincial and federal law enforcement agencies. The military is just there to provide assistance in other capacities. Now, you bring in one of the things I got so upset about when Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy was because that is the modern equivalent of the War Measures Act, and that gives the federal government the power to use the military on domestic soil. That's the equivalent of the Insurrection Act, which a lot of people on the MAGA side are calling for right now. Bring in the Insurrection Act, bring in the military. You do that, you've got blood. Even in Canada, when the Emergencies Act was used, the government still refrained from actually bringing in the military. They used police to effect a police operation, an enforcement operation, which I didn't agree with either, with how far that went. But nobody got shot because the police were there to effect arrests. And, people did get beaten, but not shot. And during the Public Order Emergency Commission, the inquiry, the review of the use of the Emergencies Act in Canada, you saw then Defense Minister Anita Anand asked, and I watched that whole thing from day after day after day, front to back, top to bottom, bumper to bumper. We brought you full coverage. And I remember distinctly her being asked by one of the freedom lawyers what her position was, like, were you planning on bringing in tanks? Because there was somebody mentioned it or whatever. And you could see the look of horror and shock even on her face at the time. She was like, no, like, we would never do that to our own people. And I was relieved when I saw that, because I was always worried when that was still in effect. It was like at any time you could use the military. That's an option there for the federal government at that point. And that's got to be a last resort. And that has to be used only when you have a threat to national sovereignty, national security, a foreign country invading you. Might even be some argument for that at the, with the Freedom Convoy. But that being said, you can't say the quiet part out loud, can you? Even now. And then, I could go on and on about this, but that's the difference. Did you further know, and I looked all this up, that even in the United States, even without these ICE actions, they have 10 times per capita more shootings and more shootings overall than we do in Canada. 10 times more involving police and civilians, police shooting civilians. 10 times more. Probably a lot of reasons for that. You'd have to dig in and not just use that stat as a throwaway number or something to just make a point and then walk away from it. There would be, important factors, socio-demographic, socioeconomic factors to look at, but 10 times more. And this is not anomalous, as Dan Bongino said the other day, what's going on in the States. I believe we're now up to 16 people who have been shot in the streets by ICE. Did you further know that it's not just 2 who have been killed? According to the research I did today, we now actually have 4 people, maybe as many as 6, but at least 4 who have been killed by ICE since July. One policing agency, because they're not acting like a policing agency. Their training is not focused on public safety. Their training is not solely focused on law enforcement. Their training is based on military tactics. We know that. That's a fact. And the question is why? And everything I've seen with them anyway has been very sloppy, but not very good at it. Except that maybe, I'm not sure that sometimes they're really trying to effect arrests. Looks like, I don't know, punching somebody who's down on the ground or hitting them with a pistol or a can of bear spray or mace or whatever it is those guys are carrying around. These metal canisters, bashing somebody in the head with that. I don't know if that's really proper policing. That in itself, to me, seems to open the question of where they using excessive force in that arrest and maybe others. This is America on January 28th, 2026. Trump's America. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I think maybe Trump is finally getting the message. And yeah, I see in the comments somebody saying 4 people killed by ICE. That's the information that I had from the research I did overnight. I don't have all the circumstances surrounding it, but a lot of stuff we're just not really getting information on. And some of those may have been fully justified, because I just don't know what the details are. I'm just giving you the numbers. So again, just don't jump to conclusions. You need more info, but this whole thing needs to be reviewed. In some cases, you need to, just put the binders on, slow it down. And I said yesterday too, somebody mentioned in the comments after the show that I had mentioned that Trump is, what was the word I used? Shifting gears in Minnesota. That is true. He has been, because you saw him pulling, what's his name out of there, Bovino, and putting in Tom Homan instead. So that's shifting gears. But I never said he's actually slowing down. Shifting gears, I don't know if he's shifting down, gearing down, or gearing up. That remains to be seen. But it's not over, and he's not quitting. That much is for sure. And why would he? Because if you listen to Steve Bannon, he doesn't want it to end. He wants this to keep on going. He wants to double down, triple down, quadruple down, just keep it going, man. Because MAGA don't quit. They're not quitters over there.
Stephen Miller, let me be blunt. You can't send 300 Customs and Border and ICE and not have a whole of government approach. You have to have DOJ. You have to have tiger teams of prosecutors. I think they've had 12 prosecutors quit the Minneapolis office. That's fine. Nobody's forcing you to work. But surge other prosecutors, FBI. Where are the pipe hitters? Where's Department of War? Where's an entire full whole of government approach? You can't put a handful of Customs and Borders and ICE agents there and let them be surrounded every night by domestic violent terrorists.
Whoa. Wow. Where have I heard that talk before? Right here in Kanakistan. They're all a bunch of terrorists. Gonna have to use the Emergencies Act.
This is an inflection point. You blink now and you're gonna blink forever. You bend the knee now, you'll bend the knee forever. If we stand in the breach and say, screw you, we're fighting for the country, right? And I don't care how many people I got to deport. I don't care. If the families are there and they're there illegally and we want to keep them together, guess what? You're going to have to round up some 5-year-olds with their parents. But they're going home. And home ain't the United States. I don't care how long they've been here on Biden's watch, law-abiding. That's not the point. They're here illegally. We can't afford it. African Americans, Hispanic American citizens, the white working class.
So he's going to bring in the Department of War for a domestic immigration enforcement operation? A whole of government approach? Because why? Because these immigration officers legally have, limited powers. So there are a bunch of legal reasons. But like I've said before, I said this from the beginning, this was going to get messy. This wasn't going to look good. It was going to really tarnish the reputation of the United States and cast a negative light on the Trump administration. And that's exactly what's happening because of the way they're doing it. Because this isn't really just about deporting people, is it? No, it's not. He's not really being completely honest with us. Look at his attitude, his emotions. This is about getting even. And he's pissed. This guy's been pissed for a long time because they threw his ass in jail. The other side. So I get it. He's out for vengeance. It's how you do it, Steve.
Their lives are being destroyed. Their education systems, their health care, their jobs are being taken. Their wages are being driven down. They're American citizens. And illegal alien invaders are not American citizens. That's a bright line. And somebody's got to be clarifying that. Because MAGA ain't backing down. We're not in the back down business.
Is that all you're doing? Just getting the illegals? Because looks like maybe it's going a little beyond that. You following all the rules? You violating people's rights? You violate one person's rights, you're violating everybody's rights. Any American citizens being caught up in this? What's the impact on your communities? Do people in Minnesota feel safe tonight? A lot of people don't. Does that tell you anything? Should. Gonna take another short break. Be right back. Do not touch that dial.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
This surprised me. I came across this today. Jesse Ventura. He's, the wrestler and politician, former Minnesota governor. I came across this. He's like, Minnesota should join Canada. I'm like, what? I want to get this guy on the show now.
I am one that thinks, let me throw this out on your show and we'll get some headlines. Mm-hmm. How about since Trump dislikes Minnesota so bad and we're so out of control, let's join Canada. Instead of Canada becoming the 51st state of America and lose their health care, like they said, they would never do that because they'd lose their health care. I'd like to see Minnesota, all of us become Canadians.
Secession
and make this part of Canada, because it's obvious Donald Trump don't want us. It's obvious that he's ready to fracture the whole country for his own folly, whatever he is doing. And
he's pulling federal funding, right?
Well, I think we should petition to get out of the United States and become if they don't want us, I'm sure Canada'd be happy to take us. And then all those Iowans, think of what a mess it'll be when they have to cross an international border to come up here fishing.
Maybe he's reshaping our reality. Yeah, you start talking about it, could happen. That in itself, though, might be dangerous. And when I start seeing things like that, I begin to think, all this talk about the Civil War spilling over into Canada and two countries breaking up and a redistribution or redrawing of the map, and it could happen. Just because there's a new world order evolving, it doesn't mean it has to go one way. It could go that way. We still have agency. We still have freedom of choice, I think, to some degree, maybe. What a mess. Who wants Minnesota to join us? They already have the snow. They'd make good Canadians. They could take the inclement weather. Yeah. Things going to get more complicated over time, I think. Yeah, Ventura's been critical of the whole ICE operation. Oh, and Trump. Remember how he said that the nuclear program in Iran had been completely obliterated with those bunker buster bombs? Well, now, look at what he's posting. A massive armada is heading to Iran. It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln than that sent to Venezuela. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence, if necessary. Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. Whatever he means by equitable. That's a word that's thrown around a lot with no real definition, I think, and used incorrectly often. Anyway, no nuclear weapons. One that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal, all caps. They didn't. And there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. This from the President of Peace. If he's doing that, and the objective is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, that would tell me that what they said before was not truthful, that the bombing, the previous bombing, did not obliterate the nuclear program. Or they're lying now, and they're just going in there to affect regime change or something else. I don't know. But they're either lying before or they're lying now about all of this. And it's scary and destabilizing. Because we're playing with fire. Back to Minneapolis. I was going to show you this with the Bannon thing. But public opinion matters. What you think matters. And a lot of people saw what they saw. They know what they know. And while more information is still needed, there has been enough public pushback on what is going on the streets of America with these ICE operations that the two Border Patrol agents who fired, shot, and killed Alex Preddy have now been placed on leave. And so that should be the case. You have any officer involved in a fatal shooting, I said this the other night, the proper procedure is to put those officers, say, you go home till we figured all this out. You'll be on a paid leave. until we have an investigation and figure out what really happened. And you look at everything, because you could come across information that is unexpected. But you don't go looking for retroactive justification. You go looking for information that is relevant to the law and police procedure and how you can prevent these things from happening again. And you have to be worried about the welfare of the officers too. These two guys just shot somebody, killed somebody. You have to be concerned about their mental health, their mental state. You don't just leave them on the job. It's my understanding that the officer that shot Renee Good was immediately just put back on the job. Imagine how it would affect your mind, your emotions, if you shot and killed another human being, even in the line of duty. Regardless of the circumstances, you just killed somebody. Might be wise to just have that person take a step back, take a little breather, take a break, get a little bit of support, right? Sit down, talk to somebody, work it all out in your mind, make sure that that person is okay up here and here. Thinking about the welfare of the officers too, everybody, and the families. Putting the guy back on the job, immediately saying, "Oh, you don't need to take a break. Just get back in there. Go get one for the gipper." It's disrespectful to the family. It's disrespectful to the law. It's disrespectful to the community. It's disrespectful to the officer because it says, "You just suck it up." And it also says, you see what I'm saying? Everybody just slow down for a minute. That's what should be happening. That's always what happens up here with our police services, because lessons have been learned over many, 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 many years. Not to say that our services up here are infallible. We have issues too. But man, that what they're doing down there, that stuff would never fly up here. Never. Sloppy, inappropriate, not focused on safety. These guys are not trained in community policing, keeping communities safe. And even there, you need the public's trust. These guys don't have it now. So that's why you've got so many people out there protesting against them. It's political, but it's also a symptom of a much larger problem. People have lost trust and respect in police. That's a big freaking problem for any society. Yeah, and Bannon's wrong. It's not about bending the knee. No. He views this as a war. That's what they're doing. They are at war. But the people on the other side, if you listen to if you just think about what he just said, it's not really about the immigration, man. It's about getting even with those Antifa assholes. Get out there. Now you've got the guns. We gave you guys the badges. Now you get out there and kick some butt. Yes, it is. That's what's going on. Yes, it is. That's why it's so sloppy. That's what this is. Political. You want good policing, you get the politics out of the cops. You have a politicized paramilitary force that's roaming the streets. And I never thought I'd be saying these things about Donald Trump or his administration. But here I sit saying, where have we seen this before in history? Have we not learned anything? I can't believe we're seeing this in the United States. Surge 2926 trampled them with horses, Canada. Yeah. Did you see the episode where we showed what that was really all about? Surge taking a dive. You should go back and find that episode. And yeah, Marina would be paid leave because you don't know what happened and they haven't been charged with anything. So that would change if they were charged with something afterward. And then, but no, the appropriate thing is always to put them on a paid leave. Still reading in here. Lovely says, not true. That ICE agent is still working. Could be. Just reading the headline there and a little bit of that story. This is supposed to be new and developing. The information is that the two Border Patrol agents who fired their guns during Alex Preddy's fatal shooting have been placed on administrative leave, and that is coming directly from the Department of Homeland Security. And yeah, they've been lying about a lot of things. This is the thing. They're trying to manufacture justification for what these officers did. Immediately they came out, they started calling Preddy a domestic terrorist, that he was out there to slaughter people. They said that he was brandishing a gun when he in fact never touched it, never withdrew it from a holster. There were just straight outright lies being told from the beginning. That's a problem. That's the politics. You know, I wasn't really going to get into this tonight, but I've been looking into why this seems to be the norm now. Why the Trump administration, I'd say, you know, even other countries, why it's becoming the norm to use deception, lying as part of the political process to this degree. These tactics, this fifth generation information warfare strategy used to screw with people's minds so that you don't even believe the things that you actually see. And I've been finding that this is all based in a certain type of philosophy that forms the foundation for the modern populist movement. And it's coming from a few different philosophers who have modern philosophers and older philosophers, but these political movements have taken these teachings and these ideas, and they've turned them into strategies to reshape people's minds. And while this might sound like a conspiracy theory, it is not. It really comes down to marketing techniques and propaganda and using this new medium, the internet, in new and effective ways that are extremely powerful. And you're seeing that in real time with these shootings involving ICE in Minnesota, especially with this Alex Preddy thing. That's why that Greg, what's his name from Newsmax, and that cell phone thing, that affects people. A lot of people just buy into it. They believe it because they want to believe it. Because that's my team. That's my tribe. Yeah, he's right. They might have thought it was a gun. So it's okay for them to kill him. No, No. It's the Gulf of Mexico. He was holding a cell phone. Do you see? You can't let them just turn it upside down. You can't let them sit there and say that Canada picked a fight with the United States on tariffs. It's not true. Trump picked the fight with Canada. His political movement picked the fight with Canada. They're at war with Canada. They're at war with liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I mean they're at war with democracy. They don't believe in democracy. They're at war with even classical liberalism, not just progressivism. LGBTQS plus, gay people. No. It goes deeper. It's the Gulf of Mexico. Doesn't matter what that guy did 2 weeks ago, who got shot 10 times. What matters is what happened at that moment, and then the circumstances surrounding that. Retroactive justification is not justification for use of lethal force. It might play into other aspects of the case, but not at that moment, whether the officers were justified in pulling the trigger and killing the man. But he kicked the taillight out of that car 2 weeks ago, so we just had to shoot him because he came back. No. What's the law say? Let it play out. But I'm not going to just sit there and let somebody fill my head full of crap to confuse me. That's what goes on all the time now. Doesn't matter what happens. Somebody gets shot. There's a big crime. Somebody gets run over by, 10 people get run over in a parade. The next thing you know, there's 50 different conspiracy theories. Charlie Kirk gets shot. Nobody knows what the truth is. They turn it into a political thing. Next thing you know, Erica Kirk is standing on a stage with fireworks going off. Turning point, they're spreading out and opening franchises in other countries because now it's more popular than ever. So why not bring it to Canada? It's the Gulf of Mexico. That was a cell phone, not a gun. It was a cell phone. He did not brandish even that, did not point it at an officer. Don't let them convince you of things that didn't really happen. Don't let them confuse you. Go and touch a tree. Stay grounded, stay real. Do what's right. Think. It's coming here to Canada. Hey, maybe there's hope. Katy Perry, Justin Trudeau. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Don't go away. You're not going to want to miss this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Also, just before we talk about JT and his main squeeze now, did you see this with Ilhan Omar? Somebody came and assaulted her by spraying some sort of liquid on her. I haven't actually seen the footage, but I think I have it queued up here. I just want to mention it because, again, Trump is trying to shape our reality on this. I've never been a huge fan of Ilhan Omar, but here she is.
Resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Sprayed something on her from a syringe.
I need a napkin. I need a napkin to know nothing. No, we will continue. No. You need to go get checked. No, we will continue. These fucking assholes are not going to get away with it. You need to go get checked. No, I don't know what. No. Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
One more time.
I don't know.
Oh my God, he sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing. No, we'll go. No, we will continue.
No. You need to go get checked. No,
we will continue. These fucking assholes are not going to get away with it.
You need to go get checked. No, I don't know what.
Yeah. There was talk that she was going to maybe meet with media tonight after doing an interview. I'm not sure who she was doing the interview with. Let me just check to see if she's done that. Something from the New York Times, but I don't think that's actually new. Let's just see what we've got here. Judge says ICE violated nearly 100 court orders. New report just 6 minutes ago. Judge condemned ICE for disobeying the directives in just a month in Minnesota. 100 of them. Senate Democrats want agents to unmask and to change their tactics if they are to vote to avert a government shutdown this weekend. Yeah, they could shut everything down over this. Chief Judge in Minnesota condemned Immigration and Customs Enforcement for violating more judicial directives in a month than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. Judge Patrick J. Schiltz says ICE violated nearly 100 court orders in January alone as part of its crackdown in the state. On Wednesday, federal judge ordered federal agents to stop detaining and deporting refugees in Minnesota who are lawfully admitted into the United States and to immediately release those currently held for re-examination of their cases. That's an important distinction. Stop detaining and deporting refugees in Minnesota who are lawfully admitted into the United States, which is to say that, contrary to what Steve Bannon is saying, not everybody being rounded up is an illegal. The judge granted a temporary restraining order halting for now the Trump administration's operation, which has swept up at least 100 people so far. The administration is likely to appeal the ruling. That number again kind of highlights that 100 people swept up in this so far. You would think, based on everything going on, that the number would be much higher than that. This puts into question for me everything I'm hearing from Trump and the people around him, where they're saying that this is a massive operation. It seems almost like it's maybe more for the photo ops than for actually deporting a lot of people. 100 people in all this activity I'm not sure what to make of it. They might not be deporting as many people as you think, folks, because, well, Bannon is saying they're stealing everyone's jobs. The real truth is you get rid of a lot of these people and the economy is going to suffer because they're doing a lot of jobs at wages that a lot of people just don't want to work for. So a lot of jobs, things not getting done. I know that there has been some indication that the economy is actually taking a hit. Productivity is down because some industries are being left short on labor. Don't know what the truth is because, like I said at the beginning of the program, I just don't trust what's coming from Trump anymore. You can't. He makes everything up. It was the biggest, it was the worst border ever. Millions of people coming. Now it's 99.9% of all immigration, illegal immigration has stopped. Really? Here's another angle on the Ilhan Omar's thing. Maybe I don't have it. So the substance sprayed, here it is here. Substance sprayed on Ilhan Omar is believed to be apple cider vinegar. I don't know why the guy would do that. Probably crazy. So this is coming from police. New information. And the alleged attacker faces charges for assault. So, yeah, she was there at this presentation calling for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to be abolished. Wants Kristi Noem impeached. And did you see how Donald Trump reacted to this? It's exactly what I've been saying. Okay. Trump. Let me see if I can find the clip. He says, right here, let me show you. I'll do this from X. I can find it over here. He says she probably had it done to herself. President Trump, when asked if he had seen the video of Ilhan Omar being sprayed, he says, "No, I don't think about her. I think she's a fraud. I really don't think about that. She probably had herself sprayed, knowing her." This is how bad it is out there. It's possible. He's either saying that to deflect and make her look bad, or he's saying it because it's true, or he's just making it up to make her look bad, or he's calling out something that could be demonstrated to be true. And the reason I say it's plausible is because right now, given the way the politics plays out, it even happens here where people pretend to be conservatives or on the right when they're really on the left. And then they even come over here and they attack in the chat, or they attack me over here, or they're on the left and see, or they're on the right and but they pretend to be on the left. You've got all these people faking stuff. They have motives that they are contrary to what they pretend to be. A lot of people in politics today engaging in deception. And yeah, sometimes people stage these false flags, these false attacks in order to smear the other side. So you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's truthful, what's real. But this is why I said the other day, immediately I said, what happened with Alex Preddy, that's not a movie. It's a movie, but when somebody actually is shot and killed, that's not a movie. That's very real, and that's final. That's death. And that's as serious as it gets. That's why at that point, you got to stop. And you have to say, enough of this and enough of the fake cell phone thing with the guy on Newsmax, and enough of the narrative spinning, enough of the conspiracy theory stuff. We need facts. If we don't at least make an effort to get back to dealing with factual information, everything is going to fall apart. We will lose everything. And because now it doesn't matter what happens. There's always some excuse, some reason for you to not believe what you actually saw. And even though you've seen what you actually saw, maybe the person doing it was just acting. And it's going on all the time. Been going on up here in Canada for quite a while. The horse trampling somebody at the Freedom Convoy, I was enraged. But you know what made me even angrier? When I found out it was freaking fake. It was sort of real, but not. It's influencers, not journalists, running into the middle of crowds, protests, in order to piss one side off and get attacked accidentally on purpose, to get people emotionally engaged and upset so that you donate, so that you sympathize, empathize, support their political objectives. It's lying to people, deceiving them, not telling you what you really are. It's running for office, running for president, never mentioning that your true intent is to take over other countries when you're telling them that you're going to be a president of peace. And the whole time doing what you're doing, still telling people you're a president of peace while you wage war, and even rename your Department of Defense the Department of War. It's time for a little more reality, because people are dying. I was going to run the True Conspiracies thing, but this is maybe the most real thing that we're going to talk about all night. Katy Perry, Justin Trudeau. They're talking about having a baby. This is a problem. Actually, it's a big problem. This in itself could be a national security issue for the United States and certainly for Donald Trump. How far along is this? Well, I think it's pretty far along. There are some people out there speculating that Katy Perry might even already be pregnant. Now, there's no credible information to say that it's gone that far, but sources say, insiders, and there are lots of reports of this, and they've been making the rounds on social media over the last few days, that they're talking about not only having a baby, they're talking about getting hitched. And then I got to thinking, oh my God, Donald Trump is going to have a conniption fit. He's probably going to come after Canada with even more tariffs. It'll be 200% tariffs on everything. If Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau get married and have spawn. Do you know why? Do you know what that means? It means that Canadian political royalty is mixing with Hollyweird. And when Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry make a little Justin or a little Katy, that child, when it grows up to be, I think, 35, will be eligible to become president of the United States. Truth. I don't know that Donald Trump will be around to see that, but I can see into the future. Because we always are ahead of the curve here. No, they're really talking about it. Making headlines. Quite the couple, aren't they? I'm not even sure. Is Justin Trudeau's divorce from his other wife, is that even finalized at this point? In any event, they're talking about having a little one. Oh, but there's more. See, not only would a baby born to Trudeau and Perry be eligible to become president of the United States, because it would, in all likelihood, be born in the U.S. to Katy Perry, who's a U.S. citizen. Therefore, the child would have U.S. citizenship, would be born on U.S. soil, and could become president. More than that, that same child could then go on to become Prime Minister of Canada. Could happen. You could have a president of the United States who also becomes Prime Minister of Canada. I don't know if you could hold both offices at the same time, but why not? Donald Trump set the precedent because he's the acting president of Venezuela, self-declared on social media. He can rename a body of water, an entire gulf. Why not? Just make yourself acting president of another country. Oh, by the way, the person serving as president in Venezuela says she's tired of putting up with the orders from the Trump administration. I don't know what that means. Maybe they'll have to swoop in there with more Black Hawk helicopters and whatever that machine was that discombobulated all of the electronics, allowing them to move in a stealth mode and just scoop up the president, kidnapping, and flee the country. They're going to have to maybe do it again, or affect some other measures to bring in regime change in Venezuela. But they got their hands full in Iran now. I don't know, they're getting spread a little thin, aren't they? Concentration of powers. Not just in the Western Hemisphere, but in the Middle East too. But I guess the Don Road Doctrine, that gets exercised just wherever. So back to Katy Perry and Justin. Oh, this is going to piss Donald Trump off. And Katy Perry has come out and has been very vocal about ICE. Critical. And let's just do a little Twitter scroll, shall we? See what the latest is on the Katy Perry pregnancy. And like I said, I was going to run this as a Truspiracy segment, but I think it's more true than conspiracy. So we'll just do this. Ariana Grande and Katy Perry urge fans to oppose ICE funding. So it's politics. Oh, look at that guy. Who's that guy right there? Emergency baby alert. Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry are having a love child. Is it a deep state communist plot? More tonight on Maverick News. And VJTV Canada posts today, or actually on the 22nd. I'm a little behind the curve. I'm bringing you the story, but I'm ahead of the curve on what's coming. Katy Perry pregnant with Justin Trudeau demon seed. Oh, she looks angry there. The pop star posted alt graphics across Instagram and Facebook saying she's sick of watching lawful citizens and non-citizens being arrested at their peaceful protests and pulled out of their homes. Industry baby versus ET. Oh my. Insiders reveal the alleged family-oriented step Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau. I don't know what else it says. Are they really expanding the family on Stylecaster? Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau reportedly already talking about having a child. She already had at least one child with Orlando Bloom. What was her that Daisy something? Is the name of her other child. So I don't know. What do you think, guys? Isn't this exciting? I mean, I went upstairs as soon as I heard about it, and I just went to see my parents. I said, Mom, Dad, I have big news. This is the most important news I think I've ever shared with you. My dad is looking at me like, oh my God, what's going on? He was like waiting for the horror story to come. And I said, Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry, let's say they're going to have a baby. My mom looks at me and she says, oh, well, that's exciting. Who's Katy Perry? Well, should I tell her? Should I say, Katy Perry is the one who's saying, I kissed a girl and I liked it? No. She won't understand. Oh, my. What can I say? Any thoughts in the chat? Hollywood celebs are a disease-ridden cesspool, says CBC Brown. Serge says, oh my God, I just threw up. Trudeau has nicer tot. Yeah, you see, referring to her, I was thinking cones, but that's really more Madonna. Her cones. I thought, we're never going to hear the end of it. And here's the other problem with this whole damn thing. And this is why it's so scary and dangerous. You know, this really does promise, this guarantees that we are from this moment on doomed, I say, because we are going to get the inevitable, the guaranteed constant coverage on the front page of the National Enquirer. We're going to get TMZ videos at the wazoo. This is going to be so big that it may actually challenge Donald Trump when it comes to dominating headlines. That in itself scares the living daylights out of me. The real question, though, is when this child is born, socialist or capitalist? Socialist. I think that's predetermined. Let me just get something queued up here for you. Man. Katy Perry. Justin Trudeau. Oh, what's coming in the future? I'm going to tell you. I know exactly what's coming. Let me just get this queued up. Here it is here. Okay. You want to know what's coming? We're better than InfoWars because we always have. See, he has tomorrow's news today over on InfoWars, but over here on Maverick News, we're so good. We're so good that I can tell you what next year's news is going to be now. And you know what's coming a year from now? Divorce. I guarantee you they're planning the divorce now, even though, you know, they haven't been married yet and they still haven't had their spawn. About a year from now, it'll be a divorce. These celebrity marriages never last. And I have insider information from anonymous sources who shall forever remain unnamed because I will protect my sources till the day I go to my grave. I'm telling you right now, divorce. So you heard it here first, folks, on Maverick News. Katy Perry, Justin Trudeau are getting divorced. I'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Just remember this. It's all fake.
Biden's about, Charlie's alive. Elvis flips burgers on the Lower East Side. 10 Trump's mask up on your phone. Shilling mean coins by remote drone. Graphene needles in your veins. Chemtrail sugar fries your brain. George Floyd's American hologram pie. Don't trust your lying eyes. It's all fake. It's all fake. The moon is a hoax. Give your head a shake. It's all fake. It's all fake. Your mama's a lizard. Your daddy's a snake. Bigfoot codes, the Mossad plan. Flat Earth truckers fighting the man. Dinosaurs guard an empty fed vault. Truth is dead and it's the media's fault. Conspiracies are real, let it sink in. Time travel, JFK is president again. 9/11's a VR game. The elite cut deals in the devil's name. It's all fake. It's all fake. From the jab to the pills that you take. It's all fake. It's all fake. The Pope's in a bunker with Q as his mate. Your phone's a snitch. Your dog's AI. The king eats penguins in conspiracy pie. JFK, Jr., Cobain, and Tupac. They ain't dead. They're all coming back. It's all fake. It's all fake. Every headline, every handshake. It's all fake. It's all fake. FBI, CIA, KGB, ABC. Are you awake? Don't believe your lying eyes. It's all fake. It's all fake.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.